Welcome back to Wealthy Mentor Trading, guys. Today is September the 19th, 2021. Today I'm going to be looking at the S&P 500 and where we left off last week, along with some targets going into next week. I'm also going to be looking at our watch list names like Tesla, which it did move higher and it is approaching that key resistance zone, along with Netflix dropping down to support, Roku, Zoom, Moderno, and Dash, and AMC. But before we get started, guys, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends. And if you are interested in trading with us at Wealthy Mentor Trading, we do have a link in the bio where it does give you that special for September, which is $49.95. Hit it up and we can get you started right away. If you do want to join IG at Wealthy Mentor Trading, hit me up with any questions that you may have. As you guys can see here, we do have the S&P 500 chart, and we did have a bit of a down week trending within this zone from that 44.80 to 44.30. We are stuck into this channel right now, and overall we did have some crappy volume, nothing too strong. We did try to break that 44.80 mark on multiple occasions. As you guys can see on the 4-hour chart, we do have multiple candlestick wicks up here showing that buyers are being rejected at that 44.80 mark. So basically, until we break this 44.80 mark, I don't see us doing anything of any significance. But my first area to look at going into next week is that 44.80 mark as my first confirmation. But 4,500 is that area to want to keep a tab on to see if the market is moving upwards in that proper position, if we are in a healthy market going to break all-time highs here at 45.45. Overall, I do see us going lower. We do have key support here at 44.30, which we did not break last week. This week, it looks like we are going to break that. So if we do have support at 44.10 and 4400 respectively. We also did bounce at that 43.75 area, which created all-time highs at 45.45. Overall, I believe we are going to trend lower, test that 43.75 area, and if we can consolidate around that 45 to 44.30 area, right? And then we can potentially move higher to see if buyers do step in around that area. So I am going to be looking at 43.75 going to next week. We may have an overshoot where it wicks down here, then buyers step in, or we also may come down here and consolidate quite a bit, just like how we had here back in July, and then move higher. Overall, I am in a neutral position on the markets. This week is a make or break week for me. If we cannot hold that 43.75 area, it looks like we are in for a bigger correction than this consolidation zone that we've been in. Okay, so that is my views on the S&P 500. Look for 44.80 as your first target and 4,500 as your second target. I personally would like to be above 4,500 to have that healthy market condition in the back of my head. 44.30 is your area where you want to see us stay above. If we do drop down, 43.75 is that final line in the sand for me before I turn bearish on the markets. Okay, so that is the S&P 500 on the 4-hour chart. Some names that I want to discuss during this market pullback is Tesla. TSLA is the ticker, and the reason why I want to bring Tesla to your attention here is that we do have that 780 resistance area. Overall, Tesla did not dip down too low last week. It did hold its own, and we are approaching that 765 resistance area where we do have multiple rejections. Overall, if we can get past this 765, 770 area and retest 780, we could definitely push higher above 780 to that $800 target where we did test it back on February. This long wick here shows that buyers did try to push above 780 but got rejected. So here's a second chance again, testing that $780 area. Overall, I do want to see the market push higher for me to be comfortable entering Tesla above 765, but that is one name that I want to keep an eye on if we do break that 780 area for potential retest of 800. Okay, that is Tesla on the 4-hour time frame. If we cannot break 780 or can't even reach up to 780, look for 750, 740, and even 710 as we did wick down here due to market weakness as the key support areas. Another name that I want to talk about is Netflix, Nflx. As I mentioned, the market did pull back quite a bit from all-time highs, and names like Netflix also pull back. So we did have all-time highs at 615. Big long wick shows that buyers are being rejected at that 615 resistance, pushing back all the way down to 576, which was support here. And we did push a little bit higher going into Friday. Going into next week, I am looking to see if 593 breaks. And if that does, 593, we could potentially test that 600 to 610 area where we did get rejected multiple times. Okay. Overall, this all depends on to see if we do have healthy market conditions, look for analyst upgrades, and also look for key catalysts on Netflix going into next week. Overall, that line in the sand for me for support is that 576. If we do break that, look for 570 and 564, which was key support from weeks back, and it was the bull flag breakout here back on September the 1st. Okay, so key areas for me tomorrow, 593 on the break and 576 as key support. Next name that I want to talk about is Roku. ROKU is the ticker. And the reason why I want to bring this to your attention, guys, is because we do have all-time highs here at that 490 mark, and we have pulled back quite a bit. And we do see ourselves down here at that 320 area. Let me just zoom in here at that 320 area where it is key for me because on the daily time frame, as you guys can see here, let me just zoom in for you guys so you can see I have a better outlook. We do have support at that $300 area. Also right here again in May, we did bounce around that area and consolidate between 320 to 310. We are at that area once again. We did receive a tiny bounce on Friday. So I will be keeping an eye on this to see if we do bounce and consolidate just like how we did on this previous two times before we move back up. If we do move back up, I am looking above 332 for potential retest of this area right here from that 360 to 365 area where it was the top right here on December. We did consolidate here in March of 2021. Got a small rejection over here back on July, and we did consolidate here back in August. So this area for me, that 365 area is key. I am looking for a nice bounce to retest those areas. And if we do break that, obviously we have 370, 375, and 380. Do I see it, Roku, moving higher than that? Probably not, just because the market isn't in the best of postures. But let's just say the S&P 500 does correct and move to the upside. I'm looking at this area from 350 all the way to 365 for a retest of those areas, and that does make for a nice bounce play. So if we continue to hold that 320 area, that is your first sign that it's healthy. But if it does break 332, that is your entry zone for potential push all the way to this area like I mentioned. Now to the downside, if we can't hold 320 and we do open up weak going into tomorrow, 310 is an area for me to look at. If that does break, I will be opening up put positions, right, on the break of 310 for potential take profits at that $300 area and an overshoot all the way to 370 where we did wick down here back on May. So key area for me going to tomorrow to the downside, 310. If that breaks, 300, 288 short position entries. Now on the break of 332, I am looking for a test at that 350 to 365 area. Okay, that is Roku on the daily time frame, and all this depends on if we do have a strong market open tomorrow and throughout the week. If we continue to stay into that consolidation zone on the S&P 500, I would really I wouldn't recommend taking long positions on Roku because it could lead to further market weakness and we could be in for a bigger pullback on the market altogether. So names like Roku also pull back. So wait and see how the market opens up tomorrow and look to see if we do break that 332 area. All right. Another name that I wanted to discuss is Zoom. And here we are on Zoom. Much like Roku, we are pushing all the way down to test that 372 area where we did have a test right here on Friday, right? We did have these weakness areas at 372 back on May, and we did push up all the way to 400. Here we are once again. And what I'm looking over here is to see if buyers do step in, right? And if we do break that 290 area, look for tests of 305 and 315 respectively, where we did have a hard time breaking 305. And this could have been a bear flag here. Here's the flagpole, right? Here's the flag itself, and we broke down last week. Now, if buyers can step in and hold that 282 area, look for retests of 290 and 305, right? We did have a nice bounce here. Hopefully we have another bounce again, okay? So that is Zoom. Now to the downside, if we cannot hold 273, look for targets of 261 as your next area of support. Okay, that is Zoom on the daily time frame. Another name that did hold its own is Moderno. Now here is Moderno on the daily time frame, and you guys can see here we are holding pretty right here around that 430 support zone. Now we did close just above that, so going into tomorrow I am looking at that 444 area where we did have 1, 2, 3 rejections at 444. Now if 444 does break, 450 and 460 are your take profit areas. As you guys can see here, we did get rejected at 460. So my personal preference is if you are entering at 444 for a scalp trade to 450 and 460, take your profits, guys. Take your profits to see how the market reacts, 1. 2, look to see if we can break 460 with convincing volume. And if we do see convincing volume on the break of 460, I would say you should enter then for a potential push at 480, which is around those all-time highs, 480 to that $500 area. 2 rejections here on the daily time frame, so keep that in mind if you are entering above 460. Now, to the downside, if we cannot hold that 430 area, where can you see us going down to? Well, we did pop down to 410. As you guys can see, this big long wick that buyers did step in. This shows that even though it closed red, it's more bullish than bearish, just because the candlestick closed up here as opposed to being closed down here. So that could show a potential reversal for us to push back above that 444, 450 area. Okay, now as I mentioned, to the downside, we do have that support at that 410 mark. If you are an options trader, which we do at Wealthy Mentor Trading, 430 is key support. If that does break, you can open up shorts down to 420 and 410. I would close my position at 410 just because we did have buyers step in. And if we do break below 410, you can always open another short position for potential $400 target and 390, where we did have a strong bounce here on September the 3rd. So it did push us all the way to 460. So I'm looking to see if we do have a push down for my another entry at that 390 mark. Now Moderno overall, I am bullish on it just because we did stay above 430. Going to tomorrow, I do want to stay above 430. Another name, Dash. Now Dash I spoke about last week, and we did have a nice move on Dash. We did hit those targets of 226. Here we are on the daily time frame. As I mentioned, I wanted to see that 215 mark break, and we did get that. But we did get that, and we did have targets of 222 and 226 hit. However, we did not get past that 226 mark. Going into tomorrow and next week, I am looking at that break of 226. We had a rejection here, here, and here back on January. And we did have obviously this monster wick here, which did show that bulls got rejected at 256, where bears stepped in and pushed it back down underneath that 215 area. Here we are once more testing that 226 area, and we don't have much price action over here, guys. So if we do break 226, look for a strong volume push all the way to 256 to retest all-time highs. Now to the downside, if we cannot break 226, where do you see yourself going? Well, 222 is support. That would be my first confirmation to wake me up, right? And 215. If 215 does break, I will be opening up short positions down for a take profit target of 204 and 196, which was the breakout point here back on September the 7th, right? We created strong resistance. We finally broke out, and previous resistance now turns support. So I am looking at that 196 mark if we do have a sell-off on the markets, for this area to hold and potentially bounce from this area, right, to see if buyers do step in. So 196 is your key support area, and 226 is your key area for entry for potential push up. Okay, and that is Dash. And this is one of the names that we trade at Wealthy Mentor Trading. It is one of our IPO swing trading names. So if you do want to join with us, click the link in the bio and we can get you started. All right. Another name I spoke about last week. Now, I did want to see AMC stay above $50, but the market conditions weren't the greatest. And overall, we did have a rejection just below that $53 mark. Now, we did stay above that 45 to 42.5 area, and that's what I'm going to be looking at next week. I do want to see us maintain this uptrend right here on AMC, but in order to do that, we do got to stay above that 42.50 area. I do see us consolidating around this $42 to $45 area for a bit, for potential push all the way to $50. If we do get past that $45 area, it's pretty much a given that we may hit $50 and retest that. Now, this is strong resistance here, as you guys can see here, a major rejection back in July. And over here, we tried to push up, but we got rejected twice. And over here, an overshoot above $50 before a weak market pushing us down to that area. Consolidation around 45, and then a push up to 450 to retest that. If we do break 50, I am looking at $53 for a retest of this rejection right here. And if we do break above 53, 57.50 is your next target, as we do have multiple candlesticks here at that $57 area. Overall, I'm in a wait and see approach on AMC. $50 is the key area for me for an optimal entry, and 42.50 is key support. If 42.50 breaks, I am looking at that 39.50 and 36.5, where we do have that breakout area back here on August, where we catapulted past that $45 area. So key support 42.50, key entry point $50. All right, guys, those are the names that I wanted to discuss for tomorrow. We did have a weird week where we did trend sideways in the market, and what I recommend to you guys is just to stay patient and to stay in cash. Not every single week you're going to get bullish price action. Sometimes you're going to see a market that's not trending higher or lower, just trending sideways, and that is an area for you to hold on to your capital and wait for the optimal entries to happen and come to you. You don't ever want to chase a trade, right? You go with what the market gives you. And if the market isn't giving you much, well, then it's one of those times where you just have to sit on your hands and wait. Much of trading is having that patience. So what I recommend to you guys is, unless you see the market above 44.80 and 4,500, you should just stay in cash. Or if we do see a market sell-off with convincing volume. Now, last week we just did grind lower, but the volume wasn't great on the sell-off. Now, when I talk about volume, I want to see convincing volume to the upside and to the downside. If we do see a market sell-off, look for these things. Look for all market index, such as QQQ, SMH, XLF, XLV, all those areas, even the Dow, to sell off. Now, when you see all those sectors selling off with convincing volume, and then you should be thinking about opening up puts. Okay, so it's all based on volume. I like to see us above that 44.80 mark going into next week. And for key support is that 44.30 mark. If we do break that, as I mentioned, we could potentially wick down to that 43.75 area. Okay, so my key is to stay patient and look to see what the chart gives you and how the market opens up tomorrow. They're all clues going in. Okay, thanks guys for tuning in. Please hit that like button, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed, please click the ticker above to get notifications on when we post our videos. Thanks, guys. See you next week.